My granddad was a submariner in the Dutch Navy during World War II. And he used to tell me when he was a kid that he woke up in a tattooist's chair in Jakarta in the Dutch East Indies in kind of the mid-1940s when they were about to tattoo a fly on the end of his nose. And apparently he woke up just in time and avoided having this big facial tattoo for the rest of his life. And so he hated tattoos, really hated them. And my nan would always sort of chime in and say, oh yeah, your great-grandmother was tattooed. So my great-grandmother, this Edwardian woman called Ethelwyn Darby, got tattooed by her brothers because they brought home a tattoo machine and said, hey little sister, we want to tattoo you. And she said, apparently, will it come off? And they said yes. So she also had a tattoo that she hated. So when I was growing up, it was always this kind of tattoos were awful. And obviously the things that you're told are awful when you're a child are just the kind of things you're interested in, you know, whether it's kind of splashing about in ponds or sticking your fingers in light sockets. So for me, it was tattooing. And so I fell in love with tattooing really, really young. I was so fascinated by them. So I always knew I kind of really wanted to be tattooed. And then as I kind of went through my university career and I got much more interested in kind of the theory of how bodies are represented and how we think about the presentation of bodies, whether it's in art or film or advertising even, I realised that those same ways of thinking about bodies on screen would be applicable to bodies in the world. So that's really sort of what happened. These interests of mine kind of tessellated together really interestingly. And the more I've gone on in my research, the more I've realised that actually it's going to take somebody who is heavily tattooed, who understands the kind of community, who understands the kind of what's going on in kind of in contemporary tattoo practice and in history to kind of really get the history straight. Hopefully coming from sort of, you know, being loving my research topic first and then coming at it academically. The work I'm doing hopefully should be more rounded, perhaps is the right word. So one of the things I'm working on at the moment is a history of tattooing in Britain, quite straightforwardly from the 19th century when tattoo shops first opened in about 1880 to the present day. And I'm so interested in how tattooing's changed over time and also in a way how it stayed the same. And one of the things I really, really am fascinated by is this perception of tattooing. Because you'll find this idea that tattooing's the new big thing, and it's brand new, it's exciting, it's hip, everyone's doing it now. You know, before it was very seedy and underground, and only certain types of people were getting tattooed, and now it's kind of very, you know, middle class and acceptable, and you know, Samantha Cameron's got a tattoo, right? But that's kind of always been the case, at least as long as professional tattooing's been around, and I'm really interested to see these cliches of who gets tattooed and what that means. You know, tattooing is not just for sailors anymore. Right back into the 1880s, right? This idea that there's a great headline from the New York Times in about 1883, 84, which says tattooing is not confined to seamen only, right? And you find that same perception all the way through, and I find that really interesting. The things I look for in a student are people who are interested in making themselves uncomfortable. And I mean that as in, I think a lot of people come to art history loving a particular thing and loving it so much, whether it's contemporary art or whether it's Renaissance or whether it's the particular thing that they love. And I think that's important. Most art history students do what they come to the subject because they love it. And then sometimes if they're a bit worried about finding things that they're not so sure about, and sometimes that worries them a bit. Like, I really want students who are brave, right, who are interested in things that they don't yet know they're interested in even. Curiosity is really important, being very open-minded, being willing and interested to, after I've mentioned something in a lecture for 5 minutes, a particular artist or a particular painting or a particular performance or a particular moment in history, to then go, oh, that's really interesting, I'm going to go and read some more about that. So curiosity and passion mixed together and kind of an open-mindedness are, I think, the most important things. In this day and age, actually, weirdly, it matters so little what you get a degree in, specifically in terms of a subject, unless you want to do something very vocational. Art history is such an excellent preparation for so many careers because you learn to think critically about the world, you learn to look at the world around you, pay attention, you learn to communicate complex ideas in kind of a straightforward way. You learn to actually really engage with the world around you. And I've got students who work in the arts, former students of mine work in the arts industries as curators, as you might expect, as art dealers, as archivists in museums and picture researchers for publishers. But I've got former students who work in finance and banking. I've got former students who work in the media as radio producers or television producers, because the skills that we teach, which are to pay attention, to look, be very, very critical and be sceptical, actually. A lot of our history is about kind of going, wait a minute, that's not right. Are skills for life. But if you want to be a heart surgeon, or an astronaut, it's probably not the best degree to do. But if you have much more kind of wide-ranging ambitions, and you're passionate about art and you want to learn about the world, then art history is the perfect subject to do.